So good morning, everybody. Okay, so we're going to talk about sorting tables, filtering them, and using conditional formatting. So this kind of topics, as you will see, are connected with each other. So we can apply, for example, conditional formatting to then run particular data sorting or filtering tables just to highlight the data we're interested into and hide everything else. So I will start with something very, very basic, okay, and then I'm going to move to something a little bit more advanced. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to show you something new to pretty much everybody, but I'm also aware that not everybody is as familiar with the use of Excel as it should be. So we're going to start with simple stuff. So just a brief, premise about everything. So what I'm going to show you today is basically the interface of the most recent version of Excel, which is the one included in the Office 365 package. Some of you might have other versions of Office available at the moment on their computers. Not much is going to change, obviously, but keep in mind that there might be some minor reorganizations of the interface. So perhaps, a few icons might be located in a different place. And obviously, another point that is pretty obvious, but I need to highlight, is the fact that I'm going to give a presentation in English. So I'm going to show you also the menus in the English language. And some tools obviously will have different names in different languages. Sometimes it's not very easy to identify what I'm talking about, but hopefully you will be able to find it out by yourself, okay? Also, keep in mind that the interface of Excel, as any other Office software, can be customized a bit. So if you by chance have modified it in the past, keep in mind that a few icons might not be placed in the very same location as the one I will show you in a few slides. Okay. So after this, we can actually start with the first and most simple operation we're gonna explore, which is basically sorting. So first of all, you're certainly familiar with the concept of lists in Excel. So whenever you're looking at a table, you usually have your data, which might not, occupy the full table, but sometimes you have blank spaces. So for example, empty rows, empty columns. So while selecting the data that we want to format in a given manner or sort with a sorting function, we need to make sure that we are selecting the kind of area that we're interested into. So a list basically, by definition in Excel, includes all the nearby non-empty cell that surround a cell of interest. So if you move your mouse and you highlight a given cell, like in the example here, the cell D4, the list will automatically include all the neighboring non-empty cells. So in this case, for example, Excel defines the list as the area I'm actually showing you here, included in this red box. Okay, so the cells A4 to I26. This stops the extension of the list, for example, with the column J, which is empty, and with the row 3, which is also empty. So if you are actually going to select this area, keep in mind that anything else, like the contents of the column K and L, for example, in this case, are simply going to be removed from your selection. And if you sort the table, then you're going to lose any kind of link that might exist between this data. So a good idea, if you have this kind of situation, would be to actually remove empty columns or empty rows that might, come in the way. And well, it's very easy. You actually need just to select the column, right-click on the top. So basically, you need to click on the actual letter that identifies each row and basically delete it. In this way, you will have continuous data, and you don't need to worry about the fact that the selection is wrong. Okay. So obviously, this is very important whenever you have very large tables. For smaller tables, this is not such a big issue, but sometimes it might happen that you have like an empty row, empty cells that you're not fully aware of. So when you select your data, make sure that everything is selected. This is also very important for, the sorting option, because if you want to sort like a single column by alphabetically, for example, like in this example here, the countries based on their alphabet, so in alphabetical order from A to Z to zeta, then if you only select the column A, you will only be able to sort the contents of that particular column. So anything else will stay exactly as this, and you will obviously lose any kind of link with the contents of the other cells. Okay, so this is a wrong selection. If we want to actually sort the table by keeping active all the connections with the contents of the other rows, you might obviously want to select everything, like in this case. Okay, so I'm going to use this table as an example. So all the functions that I'm going to show you in the next couple of hours are going to deal with this particular table, which, as you can see, includes a list of countries and a few numeric data, like their population, the change in population, both in terms of net increase and percentage increase over the past year, population density, and so on. So we will use this one just to see how the table can be ordered and then conditionally formatted and filtered. What I mean by filtering, I can anticipate that filtering means that we can obtain a smaller table that only includes the cells that contain some values that we are interested into. For example, we might be interested only in the countries that have a certain population, a certain density, or a combination between different criteria that you can actually set. Okay. So the basic sorting option can be easily accessed from the Data tab. So you click on Data on the top, and you can see this icon, which has the sorting option, and also these symbols can let you understand that the most basic sorting options are basically based on the alphabet. Whenever your values included in the cells are text, basically. Okay. Obviously, something else that is quite important to know is that whenever you select a range for sorting, Excel will automatically define the very first row as the one including headers. So you will not read the first row as actual data to be sorted, but just as a title of your column. Okay. So you might want to have a first row, like in the previous case, when you actually define the extent of the range. So here you can see we have population, country, yearly change, and so on. These are the headers. So when I do this selection, Excel will only allow me to sort anything which is contained in rows from 5 on. Okay, so the contents of row number 4 will not be reordered and sorted. Okay. So the most basic option, as I told you, is that whenever you have text content in any column, this can be automatically sorted alphabetically from A to Z or the other way around. Okay. However, this is not the only option you have, because you might have different kind of contents in your cell. You might have text data, but you might also have numbers. You might have dates, for example. You might have percentages. So depending on the contents of the cell, Excel will provide different options for sorting. So this is a screenshot of what would happen if you wanted to sort by column A, which has the header country. Obviously, what happens is that Excel recognizes the contents of this cell as text, and it provides the option to reorder them alphabetically. Okay, so you have A to Z and Z to A. On the other hand, if you select for ordering by the drop-down menu a different column, for example, the one with the header population 2024, you will be provided with a different option, because in this case, the contents will be recognized in numbers. So you can either choose to reorder them by smallest to largest or largest to smallest. Then we have this third option, which is custom list, that I will try to explain you later. Okay, this is a bit more advanced. So there is also the option when you can have a mixture of text and numbers within the same column. Sometimes it happens. In this case, for example, column I deals with the percentage of urban population. Obviously, this data might not be available for all countries. So a few of them has this notation NA, which stands for not available. And it might make sense to actually have the rows, the countries that correspond to these non-available values sorted out separately. So what the basic sorting option does, if you have mixed data, is that it proceeds with ordering first numbers, and then it will sort anything that looks like a text. Okay, so in this case, we will have all countries ordered by the percentage of urban population from the smallest to the largest one. And then below this kind of ordering, you will have all the countries associated with NA. Okay, so just to let you know that ordering might even work on columns that include mixed text and numerical values. Okay, so as I told you, well, the most common situation is where you have numbers or text, but sometimes you might be willing to sort columns by other criteria. So, of course, we might have dates, and the sorting option will be, to sort them from the most recent to the oldest one, or the other way around. But something which is very relevant for conditional formatting, which is another Excel function that we're going to describe later, is that you might also want to sort the cells by their format. So you might have some cells that are colored or that include text which is colored or has a particular font, or also cells that are associated with a particular formatting icon. Well, this kind of information can be also used to sort cells. Okay. Obviously, with advanced sorting, we can also combine, different sorting options. So we might want to first sort the cells by a given column, and then perform a secondary sorting. This is useful whenever you have redundant data in a given column. Okay, it's not the case of the example table I show you, because pretty much we have only unique values, so every country is its own name. But you can imagine to have a list of employees of your organization, and in the values including in a given column might indicate their current position. So whether they're technicians, professors, administrative staff. Of course, this could be, a redundant value, because you will have many researchers, many professors, and so on. So you might first want to sort the table based on this kind of cell, and then perform a secondary ordering on maybe their surname. Okay, so we'll have first sorting by position and then alphabetically. So we're going to see how we can do that. But first, I'm just going to show you an example about the possibility to sort in tables by format. So in this case, as you can see, we have a column, which is the median age of a country that has been previously formatted conditionally. This is something that I will show you later. But I think we have highlighted all the countries with a median age higher than 40 years. Okay. So what if I want to show those countries on the top of the table? Well, I will select the header of the column I'm interested into. So in this case, median age. And you will have from the drop-down menu the option to sort by cell color. Then another drop-down menu will allow you to select the color of the cell. We might have multiple colors, not just two of them. And in this case, I will select that I want the cells highlighted in pink on top. Okay, and this is pretty simple. It will resort your table and provide all the countries with a median age above 40 years on top. So there is also the option to use custom lists. This might come handy in a few particular situations. Okay. For example, if you click on custom list, you will have a few default custom lists. Okay. Those, for example, might indicate the actual days of a week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on, or the months of the year. so from January to December. As you can imagine, this kind of lists do not really follow like neither an alphabetical, nor a numerical order, but it's just a custom list that we might want to choose. So by default, as I told you, we just have these 4 options that deal with months and days. But what we might want to do is to create a new list. If we want to order the cells by any given particular listing that we're interested into. So when we click on custom list, you will have this new option, add, and if you click on add, you might create a brand new list. So this is an example that I did that might work for my particular example table. So if I click on add, you will see that we will have the option to actually write down a list of entries. So a list of values that we expect to be present in the cells. Now, if I had a column in my table labeled as continents, I might expect there to be, a few different options. So obviously Asia, Africa, Europe, South America, North America, Oceania. Let's say I want to sort them in this particular order. So I want all the countries that are from Asia listed on top, followed by those associated with Africa, Europe, South America, North America. Well, I just need to write one after the other the different entries, press enter after having written down each of these single entries. And then when I click on on OK, this will be added to the list. Okay, so we'll have a new custom list and saved for possible future use. Okay, so this is like a permanent addition, and this might come handy if you're used to use particular lists that maybe include some kind of codes that are used within your organization. Okay. So about special options, there might be some occasions where you want to do something a bit special. Okay, so from the option menu, you have the opportunity to actually select whether you also want to use case-sensitive, ordering. This is not very useful in many cases, but sometimes you might want to also sort the contents of a given cell, of a given column, not just by the first letter, but also on the fact whether the letter is on capital or not, capitalized or not. A more useful option is the one that you can actually unselect the option my data as headers. So sometimes your table do not have headers, so for whatever reason you might have removed them. And in that case, if you really want to also include in the sorting the contents of the first row, you might want to deselect this option, my data as headers. In this case, even the contents of the first row of your list will be ordered pretty much like everything else. Obviously, in this case, you will miss the headers, so the rows will simply named by their number. So you will have row 1, row 2, row 3, and so on. Okay, or better, column 1, column 2, and so on. Okay. Another thing that you might want to know is that occasionally tables might be organized in a reverse way compared to what you're used to. So we usually want to sort by column. Okay, and sometimes we're dealing with tables that maybe have been copy-pasted from other sources, and the information we want to actually use for sorting is not placed in columns, but is placed on rows. So you have the option, as you can see, from the sort options, to specify that you want to sort left to right and not top to bottom. Okay, this is a bit counterintuitive. Sometimes it might lead to confusion. My suggestion in this case would be to do something slightly different. Okay, so for example, you can recreate your table by copy-pasting it to a different spreadsheet, and you have the special pasting option which is transpose. So basically, the transpose option that you can access by simply right-clicking on any empty cell will allow you to switch off, to switch rows and columns contents, okay? And you will have a table which is ordered as usual, so to allow sorting top to bottom and not left to right. So what if we want to include sorting with by using the contents of different columns? Well, from the sort option, you have the opportunity to click on Add Level, as this indicates this example. So let's say that my first, principal criteria for ordering is the median age. I want to select that I want to order the cells from the smaller to the largest value. So I will have basically younger countries on top and older countries on the bottom. But then we might find that different countries have exactly the same median age, for example. Okay, so I might want to specify a secondary ordering rule, and in this case, I'm selecting population. So what Excel will do is to look at the contents of the population column cells after having sorted countries based on median age. You will create another secondary sorting. So I will basically have that all the countries that have the very same median age will be ordered by population, in this case from the smallest to largest. Okay, we can add multiple layers of sorting, so you might have like 3, 4, 5 different layers, and you can easily add them or delete them or edit them at any moment. Okay, this comes handy in particular whenever, as I told you, you expect that in your table there will be several entries with redundant values. Okay, in my specific case, I mostly have no redundant values because every country has its own name and every country has its own population. It's very difficult to find two countries with exactly the very same population. But other columns might, have redundant values, like median age in this case. I have like 3,300 different countries. It's likely that a few of them will have the very same median age. So a few practical examples to let you know in which situations these options might come handy. So, well, the previous example I provided as useful. You have a column with the indication of the actual position of a given employee of a given institution, full professor, assistant professor, researcher, and so on. And the second column indicates the full name. You can sort first rows by the position column, and then order them by their first name or their age or whatever other kind of data. You might also have data concerning the sex, for example, male and females. You might want to sort them separately for whatever reason. You might have information about the nationality. You might have a list of people affiliated to different institutions and so on. Okay. So a few important things that we need to know is that on many occasions our tables include formulas. Okay, so they actually show numbers, but the numbers derive from complex calculations. And sorting doesn't look at the formulas themselves, but just looks at cell contents. So you don't need to worry about the fact that your cells might be reordered in a weird way, because what Excel looks at are really numbers and text values. So it doesn't look at the formulas. Another fear somebody might have is that whenever you reorder, you sort a table, the formulas will be messed up, okay? And that the links to different cells, the cross-references will be altered, and so the values you have in a given cell, whenever you have a formula, will be changed. This shouldn't happen, all right? In most cases, you don't need to worry about, but it's always a good idea to make a double check, if you see anything unexpected before, moving forward and saving, because coming back then might be really painful sometimes, okay? So what I would, however, suggest is that whenever you deal with very, very large tables, sorting them, if they contain a lot of formulas, might take some time. So because you have a lot of cross-references that need to be dynamically updated by Excel, okay? So if you are 100% sure that the contents of some tables, some cells is fixed and you don't need to change them anymore, okay? You might even want to maybe copy your table and paste it in a different spreadsheet by removing the formulas themselves. So if you actually copy the cells and you paste them using the right-click menu and you do on special paste, and you can actually select paste values. In that case, you will only include in the new spreadsheet the actual numbers or the actual text and remove anything that has to do with formulas. And then you can safely sort the table without any issue, and this will save time, of course. But keep in mind that you want to do that only if you're sure that your formulas are not useful anymore, okay? Otherwise, don't worry about that, because sorting tables will generally not lead to any kind of formatting issue, okay? It might just take some time if the tables are particularly complex. So other general tips that are useful for sorting are the keyboard shortcuts, okay? So you can select all the list, so automatically if you have a very large table, by simply clicking Control and then A. So Control plus A will automatically extend the selection to the boundaries of the list. So it will stop at any empty column or empty row. So it will automatically select the list as I show you in the very first slide, okay? You may also want to extend the selection just towards the upper or left, bottom or right border. And this can be done by holding Control and Shift and then pressing an arrow. This will basically extend your selection to the sides of your table, okay? So this option is particularly useful in particular if you are located with your highlighted cell on one of the margins of your table, because you can automatically select all of it. And once again, I want to stress out the possibility that you have to actually remove any blank rows or column that you might have, because otherwise the selection will stop there and you might risk to lose a few data. So it's always a good idea to check whether you have any blank cell or entirely blank empty column or row before selecting the area that you want to sort, okay? So another thing that's important is the presence of hidden rows or columns. So sometimes we have hidden data. We do that because it's not useful maybe in a given situation. So the data is there, we're not removing it, but we're just hiding it from view. So keep in mind that whenever you select the range of columns and rows to be sorted, if you have something hidden in the middle, then that data will not be sorted correctly, okay? So make sure to unhide the columns or rows that you have previously hidden before running the selection. Otherwise, this might be a problem for keeping the correct associations between the entries. Also, this is something that might happen in particular whenever you have received a table, an Excel table from a colleague from abroad, especially from the British world. Well, sometimes you have numbers or dates that are formatted in a slightly different manner. In particular, this is the case for dates. Okay, so for example, the order of day, month, and year is exactly the opposite in the British world as compared to what we use. And also the way we represent decimal numbers is different. So there is a setting for using either a comma or a point to actual display decimals. And sometimes this leads to compatibility issues. So if you see and notice anything like that, you might want to check your local settings. This is usually not a problem of Excel itself, but it might have something to do with your local computer settings, okay? So if there is anything that you see that really doesn't work, apparently dealing with the format, you might want to try to check and change the local settings to make the file compatible. Or otherwise, you might want to do something a little bit more advanced, and sometimes you might need to change all the commas in points and the other way around. But hopefully this is not going to be a very common case, okay? Another common issue is what we can do to order cells not based on their starting or final letters, but based on the presence or absence of some bits of text that are partial. So they might be included like in the middle of a cell. Like in this example here, you have a code which is 1, 2, 3, AAA 3, 4, 6, okay? And you might want to order the cells in order to place on top anything that contains AAA in the central part, okay? Because you know that this part of the code is something that you're interested into, and it identifies any subset of items that you're looking for. So there is no direct way to run this kind of sorting with the sorting option. But what you can do in this case is basically to split a column. In this case, the column might be split into 3 parts. So you will have 3 columns out of 1. And in one column, you will have the first 3 numbers. Then you will create a second column with the 3 letters, and then the third column with the 3 numbers again, okay? And in this way, you will be able to manage separately the contents of the 3 parts of these complex code, okay? This is the only way we have to actually sort the table in this manner. But as you will see later, there are a few more options that are actually more handy that involve filtering, or conditional highlighting. So we might want to first highlight the cells that include like an AAA, for example, and then we can sort the table in order to put these items on top, for example. So let's move to conditional formatting, which is the second topic of this presentation. Okay, and then the final part will be dealing with filtering, which is also quite connected with sorting and conditional formatting. So conditional formatting is a tool that will allow you to apply some kind of formatting to all the cells that satisfy a given condition, okay? So Excel reads the value included in a cell, whether it is a number or a text, it doesn't matter, and it will apply the formatting you want to these cells, okay? So this is usually done simply for visual reasons. So you might want to highlight a few cells that satisfy a given, criteria in complex table to immediately facilitate their inspection, all right? But this can be a very interesting option to be used also for aid sorting, and filtering, okay? This conditional formatting option, as you can see, can be easily accessed from the top menu from Home, okay? And there is this section which has to deal with the style. So it's also the section when you can actually change the way a table is actually graphically displayed with colors, fills, and the possibility to actually display also cell borders. But conditional formatting will open a new menu that will allow you to actually select which kind of format you want to apply to your cells, okay? So when you click on conditional formatting, what happens? Well, first of all, you need to select the range of cells that you want to apply a given conditional formatting to. So in this case, for example, I'm selecting, as you can see, the cells that include the population data, okay? Well, what's important to know here is that it's usually useful to exclude the header cell from the selection. So, for example, here I have, as you can see, started my selection from the cell B5, excluding B4, because B4 is just a header. So since I want to apply a filter, in this case, that's based on the analysis of numerical values, the header itself contains text value, and so I don't need really to make this particular serve part of my selection. Okay. Sometimes you might also want to select multiple columns, okay, but only if you have data that are comparable in the two columns. So it will not make much of a sense for me in this particular option to select simultaneously the columns B and C, because I have very different numbers. In one, I have the row number of inhabitants for any given country. In the second one, I have a completely different numerical value, which is a percentage increase or decrease. Okay. So once I have selected the range of cells that I want to apply conditional formatting to, I can move the cursor to the conditional formatting icon. And in this case, as you can see, I have immediately a few different options for the desired rules. So the main ones, as you can see, for Excel 365 are these highlight cell rules, top-bottom rules. You have the options to add data bars, color scales, or icon sets. Okay, and then on the bottom part of these, we have the options to add a new rule, which is something more advanced. So these are not preset rules; it's new rules that we can set in a custom manner. Also, for advanced users in some occasions. But we also have the options to clear rules, so to remove any kind of conditional formatting, either from our selection or from the entire spreadsheet. Okay, and we can have a look at the rules that are active. So if we select a given area of cells, we can see whether there is any conditional formatting that is already active, and in this way we might want to add it, remove it, or add a new one. Okay, so let's start with the most basic conditional formatting options, which is the highlight cell rules. Okay, so these are the different options that you have, and well, I have to say that this kind of formatting is mostly used for cells that include numerical values. Okay, potentially it could also be used for text, but with some limitation. Okay. So for example, if we select the option greater than or less than, well, this is self-explanatory. The idea is that you can highlight all the cells that contain a value, in this case numeric, that is higher or lower than a given threshold. So if we set like 10, I will show any value that is higher than 10, literally. So it could be 10,0001, and then that cell will be conditionally formatted. If it is 10, then it will be not formatted, okay? So greater is not greater or equal to. It's different. Let's keep that in mind, We will have the option to say also greater or equal to by using advanced rules. But if you use these presets, it's literally strict greater or less than, okay? There is also the option to select the between. Between allows to select a range, okay, an interval between, a maximum and a minimal value, okay? And in this case, you will be able to apply conditional formatting only to the cells that are included within this range. I told you that this applies to numbers, but potentially this might also apply to cells that include text value. In this case, they are using an alphabetical order. So if you say anything greater than B, then all the cells that include values would start with the letter C or any other letter D, E, and so on, will be subjected to conditional formatting, and you will exclude all the cells that include values that are either A or B. They start with the letter A or B, okay? You have also the option to only highlight the cells that match a given value, which can be, in this case, either a text or a number or a date. And a more interesting option that comes back to the example that I showed you a couple of slides before, is that you can also include a text that contains, okay? So a text that contains will allow you to highlight any cell that includes a given string of text in any position, even as a partial content. So if we get back to the code that I showed you before, like 1, 2, 3, AAA, 4, 5, 6, well, you might want to apply conditional formatting to all the cells that include AAA, regardless of whether it is at the start of the cell or in the middle. This will basically apply conditional formatting, so immediately highlight those cells with a particular color, for example, and then you can sort those cells based on colors, okay? Then you have other options. Of course, you have the opportunity to sort by date, okay? You can select a given preset of time. So for example, all the dates that fall within the next week, next month, today, yesterday, and so on. This is kind of helpful when you're dealing with deadlines, for example. So you have a table that includes a list of tasks or a list of certificates that are going to expire and you need to renew, okay? Well, you might want to highlight only those that will actually expire within the next week in red, within the next month in yellow, so you can keep track of, your data in order to prioritize the actions. And this is a good method to do that. So you can use this conditional formatting options, and you will have, a different conditional formatting applied to different values. Okay. Then sometimes it might be useful also to highlight the duplicate values. So any cell that will include redundant values within the defined interval can be highlighted in a way, and maybe these can come handy to check whether in a database you have like duplicate values that you might want to merge or remove outdated entries and so on. The same thing with duplicate values can be also applied on the reverse on unique values, okay? And in this case, those options can be assessed from the more rules icon down there, on the bottom of the other options. And this will allow you to set more advanced conditional formatting options. For example, what could happen when you want to apply conditional formatting to it? Well, this is the second part of the options that will be shown to you after you select the type of conditional formatting you want to apply. Well, you have some preset options from the drop-down menu. So in this case, I've selected that I want to format all the cells that are greater than a given number. I will type in the number in that area, and then I can select these presets that are offered by Excel. So, for example, I can highlight all the cells that satisfy that particular condition with light red fill with dark red text, or with yellow fill with the dark yellow text, and so on. Or, I can just I don't want to add any fill. I can highlight the border, or I can highlight just the text with a given color. In any case, I can also click on custom format, and custom format will allow me to do something more fancy. You can, for example, fill a given cell also with patterns or gradients, so not with just a solid color. You can add cell borders of different types. They can be continuous, they can be dashed, they can be dots, okay? And then you can also change the font. For example, you might want to highlight a text in a different font, or make it in bracket, or in italic, or underline, strike through, okay, and so on, okay? And this might also be useful to apply like a uniform formatting style to all the cells that satisfy a given condition of interest, okay? So second option for conditional formatting is to use the top-bottom rules. This is also very important for numerical numbers. So as you can see, you have different options. You can, first of all, only highlight the extreme values. For example, by selecting automatically only the entries with the top 10 and bottom 10 higher or lower values. So like the outliers. Do you have a list of sellers, for example, and you have their performance? You want to highlight the top 10, which are the better ones, okay, to give them a promotion, or you want to highlight the worst seller of all your company because you want to fire them, okay? You can actually do that by, simply selecting the top 10 items or bottom 10 items, okay? Very similar thing is the top 10% of bottom 10%. This is slightly different. It means that it will select a variable number of items depending on the size of your selection. So for example, if you have selected 100 cells, it will provide the top 10, and the bottom 10. If you have selected 200 cells, it will provide the top 20 cells, or better, the top 20 values in your cells and the bottom 20 values in your cells. It's always 10% of the total. But in most cases, I would say that it's more useful to use other rules for highlighting, which is just not a fixed number or a fixed, percentage of the values. Sometimes you might want simply to highlight those values that are higher or lower than a given threshold, like the average. So you have the very, very easy option to select above average or below average. And as I told you, in most cases, you just want to highlight these cells. You want to apply conditional formatting because you want to look at the red cells that satisfy this particular value. Okay. Obviously, these rules can be customized. If you click on more rules, in this case, you can actually change the thresholds. So instead of average, you can select, for example, a certain amount of standard deviations, like 1, 2, or 3. Okay. In this case, you can really only highlight the outliers, or you can change the percentage. So you don't want to show just your top, 10%, but you want to extend this selection to the top 20 or top 30, or if 10% is too much and you want to keep it to like the top 2% to top 5%, you can easily change that by clicking on more rules. Okay. Then something more fancy is the addition of data bars. Okay, if you click on data bars, what you could do is to add either a gradient fill or a solid fill on the background of your cell. So this will actually include a sort of histogram-like bar on the background of your cell, so behind the text. Okay, and by default, the value that has the highest value in terms of number, of course, will have a fully filled, cell. So the entire cell will be filled with the bar, the color bar, and all the other cells will have a fill that will be scaled on with respect to this max value. Okay, so depending on the range of values, you will have a different fill. So here I can show you what happens, for example, when I try to apply data bars, conditional formatting with data bars on a given column. So the column in this case is the land area. So I want to visually display how large different countries are. And I applied that to the full table. And then I sorted the table based on, the actual numbers included in this column. So Russia is number one. As you can see, in this case, the data bar actually fills in the entire cell. And then I got the second country, which is Russia, which is China, and then the United States, and so on. These are sorted, and the size of the bar is proportional to the land area of Russia. Okay. So this is what happens when your cell only includes positive values. An interesting thing to know is that if you apply this kind of conditional formatting with data bars to another cell that might include both positive and negative values, the way the data looks is going to be slightly different. And here you can see it. So in this case, we have another column, which includes the actual number of migrants, the net number of migrants. Of course, this can be positive for countries that received a lot of migrants, and negative for countries that had many people living, okay? And as you can see here, you have histogram bars that can be positive or negative starting from the central of the cell. So we can easily spot graphically which are the countries that had an increase in population and the countries that had a decrease in population due to migrants, okay? And of course, conditional formatting, as you can see already here, can be applied to different columns. And so, adding more rules can add, additional graphical elements to your table. So potentially any column could be formatted in a different, conditionally formatted in a different manner. So besides data bars, we might want to use occasionally also color scales. So color scales that are offered by default, as you can see here, go from red to green, either by using just two colors or by adding a third one. So you have like the red to green that includes like orange in the middle, so like a blending, progressional blending of the two colors, or you can have the option to have white in the middle, all right? And the same goes with red and blue, but there is also the option to use a single color, for example. So different gradients of green or different gradients of red, depending on the value that's included in a given cell. Okay, so by default, the two extreme colors of this scale, so red and blue or white and green, are defined by the maximum and minimal value that you can find in a range. So looking back at the previous example, if we want to color the cells by the population of Russia will be corresponding to a dark red, and the population of the country with the lowest amount of inhabitants, which I guess is the Holy See, Vatican City, is going to be colored in white, okay? And anything in between will have a color ranging from white, so poorly populated countries, to pink and then red for countries that have a larger populations. Of course, we can change the way the colors are assigned by clicking on more rules under the predefined options that Excel offers. And when we do that, we get to this kind of menu. So as you can see, we can either select from the drop-down menu from format style a 2-color scale or a 3-color scale, okay? And we can set the colors from the drop-down menu. In this case, this is one of the preset color scales that goes from red from the lowest value to yellow from the highest value, okay? In this case, if we want to add the third color, okay, by default, the third color will correspond to not the average value of all your, of the range, but it will be corresponding to the 50th percentile of the data, okay? So it's not really like a proportional type of coloring, but this can be changed also as well, okay? And if you're unsure about how the full range of colors will look like, you have like a preview, as you can see on the bottom part of your conditional formatting menu. I guess I have another slide to show what happens with the third color here. Yes, okay. So this is actually what happens when you have 3 colors to display with the 3-color scale. As you can see, we have different options for different colors as we please. But the most important part is that we can actually check whether we want to use an actual number for setting up the minimum, midpoint, and maximum values of our range. And otherwise, we have the option to select a percentile, okay? So what would this range look like in practice? So as you can see, I have selected the minimal value, which is 0. So any country with, for example, a population equal to 0 or very close to 0 will be colored in red, okay? And then I also have set a maximum number, okay? Because I know I have an outlier in my data set, which is Russia. So Russia is very large, land area, for example. So this was, filter not based on population, but based on land area. So Russia has a very large land area, which is more than double of all the other countries. So, I mean, in my color range, I would expect just Russia to be colored in green and all the other ones to be colored in yellow to red. But, well, maybe, this is an outlier. I don't care that much about that. I simply want to color all the very large countries in red. So I can set a maximum number, which is fixed, that I like. And this number could be actually lower, for example, than the actual land area of the United States, for example. So I will have Russia, China, and United States that will be colored exactly in the very same manner in deep green, okay? And here, as you can see for the midpoint, I have selected the percentile, which is 50%. So it means that the countries, the land area will be colored, the cells containing the land area will be colored not based on a scale, on the number scale on the maximum, but based on the actual ordering of countries. So the top 50% countries, will be colored from yellow to green, and the bottom 50% will be colored from yellow to red, okay? So keep in mind that you can combine actual numbers and percentiles as you wish in order to optimize the color scales that you're using, okay? This is useful whenever you have to, for example, set up a threshold. So you expect that your cells might include a few outliers with very, very large numbers compared to the distribution of your data, okay? It comes really handy. And this is what happens, for example, when I do apply this kind of formatting to the population, all right? In this case, was a percentile formatting, that was applied. So all the countries that were in the top 10% in terms of population are actually colored in deep green with no differences. So, for example, you see that Russia, China, United States, Brazil, India, and Indonesia are colored exactly in the very same manner because they are in the top 10% of all the countries included in my list. And on the other hand, I have the countries which are in the bottom 10%, probably Libya and Mongolia in this case, will be colored in dark red because they are placed in the bottom 10%, okay? All the others are in between, and they have like a gradient filling depending, as I told you, on the percentile. So there is another option which comes very handy for conditional formatting. This is the option to add icon sets. Probably this is the most graphically appealing one, okay? Sometimes you might want to add it just to highlight some trends in your data, for example. And the options are nicely represented here from the screenshot. As you can see, there are different ways of adding icon sets. They can be directional, and this is really quite intuitive. You get arrows that can be colored in different manners or have the very same color that actually display a trend, a growing trend or a decreasing trend or a stable trend. This is very nice whenever you have like a cell, a column that includes the data with variations. In the example table I had, for example, it was like the annual change in population in terms of percentage, okay? So I could add some, arrows to show whether the population was increasing or decreasing, and also whether it was significantly increasing or moderately increasing or decreasing, and so on. But you can also add some shapes to quickly identify, some values that you're interested into. Or you can add indicators like these warning symbols or small flags, or even, something that is more similar to small graphics like stars, mini pie charts or histograms, and so on, okay? Obviously, the type of icons that you want to add depends on the type of data that you're actually conditionally formatting, or the graphical requirements for, the destination of your tables. Looking at an example, very simple example for the icon set. In this case, as you can see, I've used the yearly change in population to add these arrows, okay? So I got the numbers. I could have used different, conditional formatting, like coloring these cells with a color gradient, for example. Why not? It could have been nice. But the fact that I can use these arrows actually allows me to use discrete categories. So I can immediately spot, for example, that the countries which are really increasing very, very quickly their population are Congo, Niger, Chad, and Angola, all from Africa. Then there are others that have been increasing, but in a more moderate way. And others are stable or decreasing, even though we don't have anything which is decreasing at the moment in this sub-selection. Okay. Yes, something I should mention. Let me get back to the previous slide. Is that by default, as you can see, besides the type of icons that you can use, you can see that there is also a different number of categories. They might be 3, 4, or 5. So you also have a different level of detail that you can actually add with your conditional formatting with icon sets. Okay, as you will see, we can actually define the ranges by which these different symbols are used. Okay, so how can we define that? Well, we simply need to click on more rules to actually change the criteria for conditional formatting. So in this case, I have selected the arrow icon set. From the icon style drop-down menu, I can change it and get to the mini pie charts or flags or symbols or whatever. And each icon, as you can see, is associated with a given value. So in this case, well, you can select from drop-down menu whether it can be inclusive or exclusive, so whether it's only higher than or higher or equal to. In this case, I've used higher or equal. And then you can select a value. The value can be an actual value, an actual number, like, I could have said a net increase higher than, I don't know, 5%. Let's associate it with a green arrow up. Or a percent of the total. Okay, so for example, in this case, we have the option to only include a green arrow up when the value included in a particular cell is falling within the top 20% of all the values present in the range. So I will have the top 20 most fastly growing countries in terms of population associated with the green arrow up, and on the other hand, I will have the bottom 20 countries in terms of population decrease, so the ones where the population is actually decreasing more quickly, will be associated with a red arrow down. And then I have, in this case, other 3 intermediate categories. Obviously, if I change the icon style, I could have selected another option with just 3, for example, arrows, so up, down, or stable, and I could have selected the criteria. So keep in mind that we always have the option to select either 3, 4, or 5 categories. It's depending on the amount of detail we want to add. And this is always possible to be assessed from the more rules option, okay, from conditional formatting. Something that you should know for advanced users is that you can also, from the edit formatting rule tab, you can also add something much more advanced. So you can apply conditional formatting only to cells that satisfy a given formula. Okay, so something that is quite different from the presets that we've seen. So higher than a given number, matching a text, and so on. You might have a formula, and you might want to color a given cell in a given manner only if the contents of that particular cell satisfy a given formula. So this requires a bit of advanced knowledge of formulas for Excel. So this is another topic that we're not going to talk about today. But for example, you could actually highlight in green all the cells that include dates that fall within the next 60 days. All right. So you would have to write down this kind of formula in the appropriate tab and click on OK. And this will add conditional formatting, advanced conditional formatting to your cell. Okay. just keep in mind that. So for advanced users, this is an actual possibility. So another interesting thing is that we can actually apply multiple conditional formattings to the very same column, as long as the two type of formats do not conflict with each other. Okay, so as you can see here in the yearly change column, for example, I have included both the arrow signs with an icon set, and I combine it with a color scale bar. Okay, so in this case, I have different levels of details. Okay, so the arrow just provides a general overview of the trend, but I can also discriminate within the same range which are the countries that actually grow faster than the others. So you can see that, for example, both Chad and Niger are actually faster growing. They are in the top 20% of the world countries with the highest yearly increase in population. But I can see that Chad is significantly, expanding its population faster than Niger, 5% compared to 3.3%. Okay, and this is actually provided by the color scale. So you can add one conditional formatting and then a second one to the very same range. There's no problem. Obviously, if you change, if you want to use another, conditional formatting that would conflict with one which is already in place, the previous one will be simply replaced and removed. Okay, so obviously I cannot use two different color scales for the same, columns. This is pretty obvious. So what about custom formats? Yeah, of course. We have different ways of highlighting cells. I've just shown you so far the most common ones. Okay. Generally, the most obvious way to apply conditional formatting is to simply highlight the cells with a given background. But in some cases, if you have particularly complex tables or you're visually, prone to, immediately identifying cells that are colored in a given manner, you have like some kind of association. You have the option to change many things. So if you click on format, you can actually change the font. The font can be, for example, bold, can be set to italic, it can be set to underlined or strike through. Okay. You can actually also change the appearance of the cell itself, both in terms of the filling, that as I told you, can be a full filling or a gradient filling or a pattern filling. And you can also change also the appearance of the borders, the outline, which can be full, can be dashed, and it can be a combination of all these different factors. Okay. Obviously, these rules at a certain time might become outdated. You might want to get rid of them, remove them, or you might want to try maybe different options and you're not satisfied with one. It's pretty easy to remove them. First, you need to select the range of the cells where a given rule is actually active, and you can click on Manage Rules to open this menu, which is the Conditional Formatting Rules Manager. This will actually show you which kind of format have you used and which are the cells where this rule applies to. Okay, so you can, as you can see, edit the rule. So you can change the criteria if you're not satisfied with how the cells have been highlighted. You can actually delete the rule very easily, and you can duplicate the rule if you're interested into using a new one for maybe a different set of cells. You just can manually change the range of cells where this rule applies to. Okay. There is the option to clear rules only from the selected cells, but sometimes you want to simplify the visualization of a spreadsheet because maybe you want to share it with a colleague without so many fancy things and colors. And it's pretty easy. You go on Clear Rules after having clicked on the main Conditional Formatting tab, and you click on Clear Rules from entire sheet. Okay. In this case, this will have effect on all rules and all cells. Okay. Pretty easy. So, what are the different types of conditional formatting? So, first, you have conditional formatting. You can have conditional formatting with a Now we can move to the final topic of today seminar, which is filters. So you can filter tables in Excel very easily by basically hiding stuff that you're not interested into, okay? Hiding anything that doesn't match a given criteria. So you set a list of, criteria that you want to be satisfied, and in this case, you just don't highlight the cells or sort, on top the data that you're interested into. You simply don't want to see anything that doesn't matches. You don't remove the data. This is quite important, okay? So the data is not discarded. It's simply hidden from view. And in this way, you will be able to better manage the rows that you're interested into, and you can apply conditional filtering and sorting without manipulating the contents of any other rows that you're not currently working on, okay? So basically, this is exactly the same thing that you could do manually by right-clicking on the name of a column or a cell and, clicking on hide. As you know, probably from previous experience, this is a pretty common feature. Hiding is temporary, okay? It will simply allow you to show some columns or some rows, hide others. It may allow you to print, the data without actually printing a few accessory columns that are not that useful. But the data is still there. At any moment, you can actually click unhide and display the data once again. Okay. So how do you filter tables? Well, first of all, this is very easy. It's very close to the icon for sorting. So sorting and filtering are actually grouped within the same area in the data tab. And if you click on sort and filter, something you will notice immediately is that the area you have selected will actually change. In which way? Well, as you can see, you will obtain these small arrows close to the headers, okay? So first of all, it's important that you select beforehand the area of the table you're interested in filtering, okay? And you need to make sure that this area also includes headers. So the first row, by definition, will be identified as the header column by Excel. And when you click on filter, there will be an arrow, a small arrow that will be placed on the right-hand corner of each cell, okay? So this will only happen when the filter toggle is activated and selected. So those arrows can be clicked, and this will open up a small drop-down menu for filtering, okay? So obviously, we first need to think about which is the column that we want to apply a filter to, and then we click on the arrow, and the drop-down menu looks something like this, okay? You will get a list of all unique values that are included in your column. So in this case, for example, I have selected the country column, okay? And the drop-down menu opens this menu where I actually see I can select and deselect all unique values, basically country names. In this case, I don't have any redundant value, of course, because every country has its own name. But as you can see, you can easily, click or unclick to any of these countries to actually filter and display or hide their row, okay? So obviously, this is not very useful in this case, but it comes handy whenever you have redundant values. As I mentioned previously, you have a very large table with all the employees of a given institution, and you want to only filter professors, and for example, remove technicians and researchers. Well, very easy. You actually click on the column where you have the professional position. You will get a short list of all unique terms like professor, technician, administrative staff, and so on. And you can deselect everything and just pick professors. And this will lead to a shorter, much smaller table filter that will only include the entries that match with the professor value within these cells, okay? Obviously, the filtering doesn't really always happen in this manner. So sometimes you might want to filter by range of values, not by the existence of a single value, or like I mentioned. So what are the options that we have? Well, let's assume we are filtering a column that includes text values, so not numbers. For numbers is a bit different, but let's start with text filters. So Excel will automatically recognize that your column includes text data and will provide you with the option to click on text filters, and you will have equal, doesn't equal. Obviously, this is useful when we have redundant values, okay? You can select or deselect the countries that, in this case, matches with a given value, all right? It's more useful sometimes to use the other options, begins or ends with. So begins or ends with can be useful, for example, in my case, to only select the countries that start with the letter N, letter R, for example, okay? It depends on the structure of the text. Sometimes you have a code and you know that the last letter is important. Sometimes you might have the first letter that is more important. So begins and ends with can be useful, pretty much like contain, doesn't contain can be important. So the contains, doesn't contain is a very useful tool that allows you to identify the presence of a given code within a range. So regardless of the position where a given string of text is present, all the cells that satisfy that condition will be actually shown. Okay. So then you have the option, as you can see, to also click on custom filters. And this will enable further, more advanced filtering options. And in particular, it will allow you to combine multiple filtering criteria, okay, together with the so-called Boolean operators. What are Boolean operators? Well, this is very simple. It's just and or. So with and, you can combine two conditions, two criteria that need to be satisfied both at the same time. So somebody needs to be a professor from one column and also be older than 50 years of age. Okay, you have a column with the age, and you select these two filters and you get a table with only professors that are older than 50. Otherwise, you might want to sometimes add an or Boolean operator. In this case, you will filter the data based on the satisfaction of either one or the other condition. Okay. So, for example, you want to select all the professors, but also all the administrative staff that is senior, okay? So you have a column with years of experience, and you select 20, okay? And you select simultaneously both the option for a filter for the position, professional position column, and you select professor, and then the second filter connected with an or is professional experience, 20 years, higher than 20 years. And this will also allow you to select staff, which is not professor, which has a lot of experience, for example. Okay, so what happens when I filter, when I use a filter on my country column, for example? Well, this is pretty simple. This will open up this menu. I can select a single criteria. For example, I want to select only the countries that start with the letter L. I type in L in the menu, begins with, okay? As you can see, I could have also included the second criteria to be combined with the or, and, or. In this case, just select this one. And what happens is that my table will be filtered. It looks much smaller than before because we only have a few countries left, okay, compared to the previous very, very large table. So a few things that you should know about this filter table is that we haven't removed any data. We've just hidden it. And as you can see, the numbers of the rows are preserved. So Libya was present in the row number 20, and Laos was present in the row number 85. Well, we have plenty of other countries that were placed in the row 21, 22, 23, and so on. Well, this data is not actually being canceled, but it's still there, but simply hidden. The thing is that right now, with this very small table, we can apply any other kind of additional filtering we want, conditional formatting, we might want to order it, and there is no problem because this kind of additional operations that we do will only involve these cells and not all the other ones which are actually hidden. So this is a better, more efficient way to handle subset of cells, in this case of rows, that satisfy a given condition, okay, without affecting the hidden cells. So what if we're not happy with the filter? Sometimes we do, of course, we make some errors. We want to get rid of a filter that we're not happy with. This is also pretty happy. There is the option to click on remove, clear filter from, and in this case, will be country, okay? So if you select the range, you click on filters again, you will have the options to clear all the filters that are active on this selection, all right? One thing that you should notice is that, of course, filters do actually hide your cells, but it's a special type of hiding, which is different from the one you actually apply with your right click on the row name, for example, because you cannot really unhide the hidden cells unless you remove the filter first. So the filter actually overrides the option to hide and unhide cells with the regular right-click menu that you have on Excel. Okay, keep that in mind. So if you want to see again, the kind of cells that you have hidden, you will not have the option to do that by unhide, but you need to remove the filter first. Okay. So what happens whenever we have cells that include number data and not text data? Well, the options for filtering are very similar, of course, to the ones we have previously used for conditional formatting. Okay, you have the opportunity to filter all the cells that include a value equal to a given number, higher than a given number, lower than a given number, included in a given range, and so on. Okay, so it's very easy to do that. But what generally happens is that you are usually working on a few tables where you have already applied some conditional formatting. So since setting up new rules for filtering might require time, why not exploiting existing conditional formatting that we have already added before for filtering tables? This can be done very, very easily, okay? Because if you select a given column, for example, and that column is already associated with the conditional formatting, as you will see, you will have the option to filter them by color, for example. So I have selected, in this case, the population column. My population column had been previously conditionally formatted to highlight in a color scale from green to red the countries with different populations. And in this case, I would like to only display in my tables those countries which have a population which falls within the top 20%, okay, of the world. So I might select with this menu a given color and like dark green, and only obtain the countries which have been previously conditionally formatted in that particular manner. Okay. So what if I select another column where I have applied multiple conditional formatting? Well, in this case, I'm selecting the column with the yearly change, for example. And if I click on filter by color, well, you see that I have two options. I can either select the actual color of the cell, or I can filter the table bar by their icon. Okay, I can do either one of the two options. So I might want to select, for example, only the countries with an increase in population. Well, I can select from this menu the icon that I want to and click on OK, and it will easily filter my table. And as you can see here, I have a very short filter table that only includes the few countries that have a very sharp increase in population. So they are in the top 20% of my full data set, okay? So now it's important to know that once I have filtered this table, I could potentially apply a secondary filter, to even make the table smaller than this. Obviously, in my case, the table is small already, so there is no need to actually do that. But if you're dealing with very, very large tables, even by applying a single filter, you might still have, hundreds or even thousands of entries. So applying a secondary filter could be pretty useful. And in this case, we're talking about the so-called compound filters, okay? So it's pretty easy. Adding a compound filter is just filtering a table that has already been filtered once before, okay? So this is an example. I can, for example, add, once I have filtered the table and I only get these dozen countries that satisfy the initial criteria, I can add the second criteria. So I can see, for example, that in my table, I have a few countries that are very, very small. So, even though their population has been increasing quite sensibly in terms of percentage, I don't think these are very relevant, for, the consideration made on a global scale, because we have Mayotte and Tokealu, which are very, very tiny, countries, which has population which is actually smaller than 10 million inhabitants. So what I can do is that I can add a second filter. In this case, I will add a custom filter by a different column in this case, and the column is the population column. So I can apply the filter that the population should be higher than 10 million inhabitants, and I then click on OK. And basically what happens is that my table will have removed the two smallest country, okay? So this is pretty easy, it's just, applying a second filter on a previously filtered table, and this can be done on multiple times, okay? So for example, here I could filter even model table based on the population density column, for example, or based on the land area, and so on, okay? Not really an issue. Keep in mind that, the other cells have just been hidden, and they can be shown again in any moment by just, removing the filters that we have applied so far. So a few hints and tips about the filters, because there are some kind of advanced options that we might occasionally want to use. So when you click on the filter icon, it will provide you, as I told you, all unique values that you have in your range. It will also list an additional category, which is blank. So sometimes in very large tables, you might have missing data. And missing data occasionally are blank, cells with no value associated with them whatsoever. And having them listed as a single category can be very useful, because you can filter them out, for example. So you can just deselect them and they will disappear from your table. So any row that has a cell with a blank value, a null value, can be removed very, very easily with a single click, okay? So you don't need to sort it. You don't need to run conditional formatting. You just need to filter them out in this way. Very, very easy, okay? Also, another interesting thing that you might not be aware of is that sometimes we have these large tables and we want to print them, and we have plenty of rows and columns that we're not interested into. We just want to print a subset, And what we usually do is that we remove cells when, we reformat in a very complex manner our Excel table. Well, we don't really need to do that, because we have the option to filter them out. And if you filter, you just hide cells. And if you print the filter table, then Excel will print the table exactly as you see it. So you will not have any issue with, temporarily deleting rows and columns just to, obtain the range of cells that you want to show. So printing becomes pretty easy when you have a filter, one or more filters that are active. So another thing that I didn't show you here is that you can easily combine, different filtering criteria with the Boolean operators. So basically, what you can do from the drop-down menu as well is that you can select and deselect by clicking on the tick box that you have on the side of each unique value, whether you want to include them or not. This is exactly the equivalent of running an OR Boolean operator. Okay, so another advanced option that can be useful in some cases is the possibility to filter values based on the so-called wildcards. So wildcards are useful whenever we are not really sure about the full content of a table of a cell, but we want to keep anything that has some criteria that matches with some criteria. So the wildcards that are actually boxed in red in this screenshot are represented by two special characters, which are the asterisks and the question mark. Okay, so these are basically regular expressions. How do they work? Well, we might want to use them sometimes if we are really unsure about the full range of values that we might have in a given cell, but we want to, for example, keep all the values that start with a given letter and end with another one. So we have a list of surnames, for example, and we want to only have a subset of surnames that start with B and end with S, for example. And we don't care about any other characters in the middle. So somebody could be called Barnabas and it will be, included. Somebody else might be simply called Bas, B-A-S, and it will be included. We can use these wildcards, okay? So as you can see, the question mark represents any single character and the asterisk represents any series of characters. So when you add the question mark and you write like B question mark S, then you want a given surname to be exactly 3 letters long. So the second letter could be anything. If you actually replace with question mark with an asterisk, then you don't really care about the number of characters. You just want the first and the last one to be matching with what you're looking for. So if you write B asterisk S, you will be able to filter all the values that have any number of characters, but have a value that starts with B and ends with S. Okay, these are called regular expressions, and they allow you for a more flexible filtering, especially in the case you're not really sure about what the content of a given cell should be. These are, for example, useful for not for surname, of course. This was like a very silly example, but just to let you understand a situation where they could potentially be used. But it's more useful, I guess, for filtering complex codes, like if you have, I don't know, identity card numbers or students' numbers, for example, students' IDs, stuff like that in the context of a university. So there is a very last topic that we might want to briefly explore in the final minutes of this seminar, which is the application of advanced filters. Okay, so when I'm talking about advanced filters, I'm talking about some stuff that is not part of the filtering presets that I showed you so far, but is included explicitly in a few cells that are placed within your spreadsheet. Okay, so the criteria, the filtering criteria, needs to be specified with the use of a formula in some of the cells that are placed inside your Excel file. Okay, this part of the table is called the criteria range and is made up by a field name, and the field name must match one of the headers of your table. And below the field name, you need to have the criteria. The criteria is a formula which specifies which conditions should be met. Okay, so you can combine multiple filtering criteria together by placing the field name and the criteria close to each other, and in this case, they will be automatically connected by an AND Boolean operator. So both criteria should be simultaneously satisfied. Or alternatively, you can place the field name and criteria on top of each other, so on the vertical scale. And in this case, Excel will automatically interpret this information as an OR Boolean operator. So only one of the two, any of the criteria that you're using needs to be satisfied. Of course, this can be used for multiple criteria, not just two of them. It could be used for 3, 4, or 5 of them. It's not a problem. Okay. So how do I access to the option to apply an advanced filter to an Excel table? Well, on the side of the biggest filter icon, you have a smaller icon which is called advanced, and this will allow you to apply advanced filters only in the case you have already written in your table somewhere the criteria for filtering itself. So let's get back to our usual example, the table that includes all the population data. So let's say that I want to apply simultaneously two filters. So the first filters is based on the density. I want to only keep the countries that have a density of population higher than 100 inhabitants per square kilometer. And then I want to combine this with the second filter based on the actual population that should be higher than 1 million inhabitants. Okay, so I need to write those criteria down in the cells that I've highlighted. You can write anywhere in the text, okay, as long as they're not included in the actual range of the table that you're going to filter. Okay, in this case, I've used the cells E1, E2, F1, F2. It's not a problem where you place it. Okay. The important thing is that the field name should match one of the headers of your table. So I have density written exactly in the same manner as it is in my table below, because the function advanced filter will look up at the name of my field and search for the corresponding header in the table that needs to be filtered. Okay, so this is the important thing. And then, of course, the other important thing is that the criteria should be written in a format that is interpretable by Excel. So in this case, I've simply included these very simple formulas. So higher or equal to 100 and higher than 1 million. So what happens now? Well, if you click on the advanced filter, you actually have the option to select the list range and the criteria range. This is the most crucial part, okay, of the entire process. So keep in mind that the list range should include your full table. So the entire area of the table that you want to apply the filter to. Okay, so basically you can click on the arrow up that you can find close to list range, on the right hand side, and select the cells that you want to filter. And the criteria range should correspond to the small table where I put the two criteria I'm filtering with and the number of the fields as well. So in this case, I just need to select the 4 cells that I have added. So E2, E1, E2, F1, F2. Okay, and I can either write it down by myself in the criteria range table, or I can select them by clicking on the arrow up symbol. Okay, and we'll be prompted to actually select that from the table itself. So once I've done that, I can click on OK, and what will happen is that we now have a filter table where only the countries that satisfy simultaneously both of these criteria are shown. Okay, you see that the formatted table pretty much looks like the other filter tables that I showed you before. So you have the actual cells that have been filtered that have a number which is number of row which is actually looks blue. This allows you to immediately understand that these have been filtered. And as you can see, several rows are missing. For example, we don't have the contents of the row number 5, number 7, number 8, and so on. Okay. As I mentioned, the structure of my criteria table in this way, with the two fields placed close to each other in nearby rows, allow a filtering based on the simultaneous satisfaction of both criteria. Okay, so this is an AND Boolean operator. I could have done something different. So I could have actually placed population below density. Okay, so not the 4 rows placed in a 2 per 2 format, but 1 by 4 format. So if I place them vertically and select that particular criteria range, the operation done by Excel will be slightly different, because in that case, the 2 range criteria will be not interpreted as simultaneous condition to be satisfied, but alternative. So I would have had a resultant table with all the countries with a population higher than 100 persons per square kilometer, or having a population higher than 1 million inhabitants, regardless of the density of population. Okay, so the interpretation is much, much different. However, there is another important catch about advanced filtering, okay, besides the possibility to quickly combine multiple filtering criteria to obtain a smaller table, which is the fact that you can actually manage to obtain a copy of your full table to another spreadsheet, okay? So, as I told you, all these filters do not actually remove any data, they just hide it. But what if you want to have a copy, a clean copy of your table post-filtering? Well, of course, you could, select the data and copy them and paste them to another location. But this might be a bit, complex sometimes to do. There is a very quick option to do that with the advanced filter. So let me get back to a couple of slides before. So usually the basic, advanced filtering actually just filters the table. And you can see that there is an option copy to, which is not active, because I have selected filter the list in place. Filter the list in place means that I'm just, filtering the table within my spreadsheet. But I could have potentially selected the other option, which is copy to another location. So if I select copy to another location, the copy to option is actually enabled. And whenever this option is enabled, you can actually select where you want to paste the filter table, okay? So you will obtain a new table, which is basically a copy of your filter version. And this can be placed, for example, in a different spreadsheet. You have a different tab, for example, the full table, and then you have a second one that you call the filter table, and you will have the clean data pasted there, okay? Another option could be to have, the filter table copied on the side or on the bottom of the full table. It's not a problem, because with the copy to option, you can click on the arrow up symbol, and you will be prompted to select the output cell. So if you click a single cell in the very same spreadsheet, this will be the top left corner of your new table, basically, okay? So that will be used as an anchor to copy and paste the filter table, okay? But you can also select a different spreadsheet, for example, and you will have a filter table in a different sheet, which is also very, very handy. So an important thing to know when it comes to advanced filters is that the clean table that will be copied, in a different location will lose all its original formatting. So you will not be able to copy the conditional formatting. So if you have any icon set, if you have any color bar, scale bar, whatever, it's not going to be copied. You will simply have the actual values that are still there, including, the formulas that might be there. Okay, these are not going to be deleted. Okay, these are going to be kept. So this is an option, of course, but in general, I would say that the advanced filter options offer also the opportunity to more advanced, experienced Excel users that are have more knowledge about the use of advanced formulas like the if or count if, for example, that are pretty useful to use more sophisticated filtering criteria compared to the ones that are offered by the preset options like highlight by filter by number or by text. Okay, in this case it's pretty simple, because in the criteria range you can paste any formula that you want to be satisfied and combine multiple formulas with themselves. Excel will actually check whether the contents of a given cell actually satisfy the formula or the formulas, and it will return the table filter in this manner. Okay. But this is, something that goes beyond the scopes, the aim scopes of this seminar today. And with that, I think we're basically at the end. I'm happy that we managed to do that in time. As you've seen, these are simple options, but we use them every day. But maybe sometimes we were not really aware about the potential of these tools. Hopefully, I've been able to show you a few, additional options that you might be able to use in the future. And keep in mind that there are even more advanced functions than those. And the part that I haven't been able to show you today mostly deals with the option to incorporate, complex formulas in filtering, for example. Okay, so filtering is much more than what I just showed you today. And if you have particularly complex data sets, you might want to maybe follow another training that deals with the application of formulas first, and then combining that information with the training you have received today, you might be able to really apply a very, very effective and sophisticated filtering to your data set. Okay. And that's it. So thank you very much for being here.